Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DeFi panel. I'm really excited to be here with all of my esteemed panelists. And before we get started, I think we should just do a quick round of introductions. First of all, my name is Luke Youngblood. I'm a contributor to Moonwell. Moonwell is an open, decentralized lending and borrowing protocol on Moonbeam, and excited to be here today to talk to you about the state of DeFi. So let's just go to Paul next.
Sure. Hey guys, it's a pleasure being here. I'm basically the founder of REN. REN is a neobank and exchange in Spain. Our purpose is to be able to bridge the gap between people who's not into Web3 and DeFi, using DeFi as engineering for lending and basically yield generating services, and being able to bridge the gap between young people, specifically young targets, with DeFi.
Awesome. Edson, why don't you go next?
Hey, hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Edson Alcala. I'm co-founder of the Cora protocol, which is a lending protocol where users can borrow stablecoins without the risk of being liquidated.
Sam.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam. I'm the founder of Frax Finance. It's a stablecoin protocol, and now a little bit bigger than that. It's lending, swaps, and a lot of other stuff. You guys might have heard of us. I'm doing well. Glad to be here. I haven't slept in about 48 hours, but it's fun timing. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. I mean, we're a big fan of your project, and yeah, it'll be a great discussion. There's been a crazy amount of events happening the last few days. So Wesso, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Hi, I'm Wesso. Sorry about the background noise. I'm actually at Token 2049 right now as well, so doing double work here. But I'm the lead developer of Beefy. We're a cross-chain DeFi application. We perform yield aggregation, so like automation services, making everything much easier for users. And that's really our vision.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump right into it. So first question I have for the panel, given the incredible market conditions that we've seen in the last few days, what is your assessment of the DeFi ecosystem today? And I guess we can just go in the same order if you want, or feel free to jump in, anyone that wants to take this.
Sure. Yeah, well, basically I'm in the car because I wasn't Token 2049 also. I just came back right now. So yeah, that's good. But basically yesterday we see the largest liquidity withdrawal from the market since 2018. We basically been analyzing that internally, and we've seen that all the major whales leave the market yesterday, ending the day, Europe's time zone. And we think we really want to have like a very liquidity damage on the next 10 to 15 months, which probably it's going to be hard times for many protocols that have low treasury or that have low way to generate income. So yeah, we basically now on the fence looking seeing how this is gonna evolve, and specifically the next 10 days, where we see like all the different other players that get caught into this, and if that ends up having a real impact and volumes on DeFi. The good part is that we've seen crazy amounts of volumes in DeFi. Yesterday Uniswap was on fire, Curve 2, and probably you guys saw that on your projects too, which is great.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. I personally think that, I mean, these events are very unfortunate because I think it hurts the whole industry. What people think about crypto in general is really bad. I think in some ways actually good for DeFi because yeah, I mean, it's been proven that having full transparency and the mechanisms that DeFi is putting in place are working. And I think in the long term it's going to be very beneficial, but I think short term, yeah, it's going to affect a bit the reputation, and also if we want to onboard new users, especially with FTX, being a company that invests a lot of money in PR and marketing, and yeah, that at the end of the day is a two-way sword, because it gives you exposure, but if you behave properly, that's good. But if you do something bad, everyone will know about it. So hopefully that doesn't break the confidence of new users, and especially also regulators. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, I think DeFi is being proven that it works.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like I was saying, I personally haven't slept in 48 hours, but things are fine. At Frax, we also had no exposure or anything. Things are they're great, but you know, you just can't look away when something like this is unfolding with FTX and everything that's going on. And honestly, it's more exciting than an action movie, and it's been absolutely crazy. I literally tried to sleep for about I think, like 90 minutes or so before trying to make this panel, and I'm grateful to be here. But it says so much that, I mean, like Curve, like you're saying, Edson had like over 3 billion of volume. The two Frax, one of the largest TVLs, I think, and combined the Frax BP and Frax 3CRV pool had, I'm pretty sure, almost half $500 million dollars of volume, and things worked fine. I mean, obviously there was a lot of crunch Tether and USDC liquidity in situations like this, but you know, it says a lot when all of these things work fine, right? You know, the main issue, so to speak, or like the cause of all this stuff was you know, one knowing counterparty risk when they're using FTX, not realizing that their actual counterparty somehow in terms of weird collateralization and black magic issues was actually Alameda and not an actual FTX. So crazy times, and I think honestly things will be fine. It's kind of weird. I was telling guys at Frax, like, yeah, this is pretty bad overall in terms of the overall market and things like that. But it's not probably as bad, believe it or not, as May and June. Just in terms of sheer amount of shock was May and June. So I think everything will be fine. But it's definitely the craziest time. I think this is also the most interesting time I've ever been on a panel myself. So it's good to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it's great timing. And also, I have to agree, because I feel like the May and June shock, you know, with Terra and Luna imploding, there was a lot more on-chain activity, right? Whereas with FTX, it's everyone trying to withdraw, so everyone's pulling liquidity out. But I feel like there was way more movement on chain during UST imploding, and so it was, you know, like Curve pools were getting drained and things like that, which we just haven't seen that much of. Now, we did see some interesting activity last night. I thought it was really fascinating. It looked like Alameda was trying to unload a whole bunch of Tether before they got their Tether wallet frozen or something by Bitfinex. And so they temporarily depegged USDT on Curve. But I mean, like, that's just on Curve. It's just a couple $100 million depeg or something. And you know, the markets will arbitrage that away pretty quickly. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, there's been a ton of fallout. Wesso, what are you seeing? What's your assessment?
Yeah, obviously we have to overcome like the negative now perception, right? So we are building up that perception, and FTX is very unfortunate because of all of the marketing spend there in front of the media. So we talk about like trying to get a better perception for like crypto in general, sets us back a little bit. But I think the one thing we have right now is an opportunity, right? Because DeFi really did shine through. It shows that everything that we kind of been preaching, so transparency, decentralization, all really do matter. So this is our time to make the case, right? That like, hey, crypto is not just this broad terminology, that DeFi is separate from centralized finance and sexes. And so we need to start to showcase, I think, all of the power of DeFi and everything that we can start to provide and the revolution that we're trying to build. So this is a good opportunity. Obviously, it's terrible for a lot of the protocols that have been building, and some of them are not going to make it. Some of them had, even if you just think about the risk that they had with market makers that were pretty stuck on FTX, where they had protocol tokens. So, you know, hey, help out a counterpart, help out a protocol, brother. Like we're all just in this together. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and I think, this has been the ironic thing about this incident is that it has proven yet again, there's been many instances this year that these centralized players are actually much more risky than DeFi because, there's no ability to see how much assets they actually have on their books, right? It's all opaque. Whereas DeFi, you can see everything on chain. You can see the proof of reserves. There's no need for somebody to tell you that, to promise they have the money because you can actually see it. And so the ironic thing would be that, if regulators come in and put really hard regulations on crypto, because a couple or a few centralized players have been taking too much risk, I think that would be pretty devastating for for them to paint all of crypto with the same brush that they paint the centralized exchanges with. So my hope is that, like you guys said, that in the short term, this is going to be pretty painful. I'm sure regulation is going to happen, but in the longer term, my hope is people see the benefits of full on-chain transparency and the benefits that DeFi brings in terms of, understanding all the counterparty risk that is in the system. And I think that's a really compelling story. That should be the story we tell regulators that, if these centralized players move on chain and have all their books on chain, I think that's a much better picture than what we have today. I mean, we've seen it with 3AC, with Celsius, with BlockFi, with Voyager Digital. Now, FTX is just the latest one of these centralized players that blew up. So, along lines with the same question, I wanted to ask the panel more specifically, like what impacts, if any, are you seeing in your ecosystem from the FTX situation? Like I'll just start with Moonwell. So the impacts we've been seeing, we have seen some liquidity providers withdraw liquidity. I think everyone is maybe, trying to get their liquidity out of protocols just as a precaution. Although we've been remarkably, everything's been operating normal. We have seen some liquidations due to the price movement. Obviously, people that don't maintain their loan health may get liquidated when, the markets dump, 20, 30% in a single day. But everything seems to be operating pretty normally in the Moonwell community. And, everything in Moonbeam and Moonriver has been actually running flawlessly throughout this entire situation. So I think it's actually been largely, our ecosystems have largely escaped much of the fallout of this, other than losing liquidity. But I'd be curious to hear what impacts do you have in your ecosystem?
So from our end, basically, we're now launching on the 1st of December to everybody. So we basically now we went through the path of getting regulated, and we now have the custodian and exchange licenses here in Spain. And we basically launching on the 31st. So we will see on the 31st how it's the reaction. Also from the recent news of FTX. And yeah, so basically it's more, we are more in a discovery phase than you guys, than operating phase.
Yeah, in our case, we haven't really got a big impact in that sense from the FTX situation. In fact, I mean, the moment where there was a big impact was back in June with the USD DPEG, because at that point we really, since in Cora you could borrow a stable coins without being liquidated, we never thought that we really we needed a process to select a stable coin. So I think that really impacted a lot the protocol. But yeah, this situation it hasn't impacted us at all.
Excellent.
Well, one of the things with Frax, like you guys look at Moonwell, it's everything is entirely on chain, and we've been blessed with being able to not even make claims about our kind of financial, like the protocol's collateral balances and things like that, but just show it, right? Just really don't trust but verify, right? The class. And Frax is doing fine, thankfully, and everything. Like you guys were saying, yeah, the curve pools and just liquidity, and both from like Uniswap and things like that have obviously been extremely volatile, due to mispricings of things and people wanting different stable coins, pretty quickly. There was actually a lot of trading literally past 12 where people were trying to exit Tether through Frax and USDC, also BUSD and USD as well. And we were just monitoring that everything was actually working as properly, which everything was. There's a lot of demand for basically any stable coin with deep liquidity on mainnet to get out of Tether for whatever reason. And so, it's been an extremely hectic 12 to 24 hours. But going forward, I don't think this affects us much at all. But I have sympathy for a lot of were affected by this. I think we're just going to keep building exactly the same way. Get more Frax out to different chains. Make sure the peg is perfectly sound, like it's always been, even through these events. So things are going quite well. Just gotta get some sleep personally for me. But other than that, it's good.
Yeah, I think there was, like I said, overnight, there was that USDT bank run, if you will, on Tether, where Alameda was probably just trying to swap a lot of their Tether for USDC so they wouldn't get their account frozen, and that probably triggered other people to panic and try to dump their Tether as well. And I'm sure everyone was swapping for Frax or swapping for USDC or DAI or whatever they could swap for, right? Whatever had the most liquidity and the lowest slippage. So it's kind of fascinating to see these events happen. And as always, it just amazes me how protocols like Curve just function totally normally. Curve LPs see ridiculously high fees because they get a crazy amount of volume in those days. It's just awesome to see everything work really smoothly. And, it's sort of a testament to like how well designed these protocols are, like Frax and like Curve and others. Wesso, how are you seeing? You guys are on many chains, so I'm curious to see how your ecosystem is impacted by some of these events.
Yeah, I think we can't restate enough, like how everything, like this is like the giant stress test, right? Between the events that happened in May and the events that are happening now. If you wanted to stress test your protocol, this is how you do it, right? And everything was functioning just as it should. Which has been fantastic. So from that lens of it, as like a builder, you're like, okay, well, you're never gonna like kind of simulate some events like this. So being able to test it, I guess, in production and seeing it work out exactly as it's supposed to has been good. We're so focused. There's so many new innovative developments, especially when it comes to like the cross-chain nature of things that we can sort of like build and continue to build upon. That as on the development side, it's still super exciting. Crypto is growing immensely. The technology is really fast. So though I think like liquidity obviously has been sucked out of the markets, and we've seen that, and that's just people kind of risking off because there's a giant risk obviously associated with everything that's kind of going on. So people playing it more safe. But I think as we continue to build more innovative products, we show really the power of decentralized finance. I think that you'll start to see the liquidity start to flow back in. And so even if you look at each of the different ecosystems, I think it's all the same, right? Like we all kind of went through the same sort of turbulence yesterday, but I haven't seen any that have been like, super impacted too much, but we'll see how it all kind of plays out over the next few weeks or months.
Okay, great. So shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk more about innovation and what we can expect to see. So what innovations are you seeing in cross-chain DeFi? I think we're all, a lot of us are on many chains. Polkadot is a really awesome, and Moonbeam, gives you access to a really awesome multi-chain ecosystem. And so I'd love to hear, what innovations you all are building or seeing in multi-chain DeFi or cross-chain DeFi.
So my end, really amazed by all the different borrowing and lending money markets you're building, guys, on the different chains. Specifically you guys on Moonwell. I've seen like we are now just trying into being able to get connected and be able to spread liquidity in not just one chain, but in different chains on different money markets, and be able to just do that in a very seamless way for our end user, which is at the end it's a new kind of user in the Web3 space. So yeah, basically that would be how most of the things I'm very amazed now.
In my case, in our case, there are two main aspects about the cross-chain part that we are super excited. The first one is the multi-chain governance, because as protocols start deploying in different blockchains, like where are going to be the decisions being taken, and how do you have this token, the governance token, across the different blockchains, and then where do you take the decisions? So I'm quite excited about that area. In fact, we are working in a multi-chain governance module where we are gonna have right now it's a first version, but basically where we can take decisions in one chain and then we propagate all these decisions to the rest of the protocols. The second aspect that I feel very excited, and actually we are also working on that, is the liquidity aspect, where the experience that we want to provide to the users is to access liquidity and provide liquidity from anywhere. And then, they could basically go to another blockchain and withdraw their liquidity. So I think our vision is very aligned with Moonbeam, because this connected contracts idea is fascinating. So we are definitely investing a lot of resources and effort to make this reality. And yeah, we are very excited about it.
Yeah, same here. Some multi-chain kind of cross-chain endeavors that Frax is working on right now is making sure native minting and redeeming of Frax is actually coming on live on Moonbeam soon. I think, Luke, you're well aware of and probably looking forward to having the kind of fairy minting and redeeming system that we're working on go live on Moonbeam. So it's going to be really exciting and entirely built into the protocol. Previously, we had a lot of functionality with bridges and things like that, which we're kind of at Frax taking destiny into our own hands, right? We're basically building every part of the DeFi stack internally, especially with the size of the Frax stablecoin and things like that. So that's coming to Moonbeam, and it's going to be very exciting. And we also have a lot of interesting integrations with other pieces of the DeFi trend, is what I call it, with FraxLend and FraxSwap as well. And I think it's just going to be a few months of consolidation, both for the industry, but also just using things that are they're sound, they're on chain, and it makes sense, and are confident in how they work, right? Because I don't think there's no more pain tolerance after the CX situation to accidentally get into another industry-wide crisis. So hopefully we'll go a few months before something again comes, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was going to ask, would you mind telling people about how Frax Ferry will work? Because I think we're all curious to hear, because I think it's really awesome how you've really eliminated bridge risk across all of the Frax deployments, and I think people would love to learn a little bit more about how Frax Ferry will work when it arrives.
Yeah, definitely. So I have like a worldview that some people are, even I myself kind of stablecoin maximalist, in the sense that I think one of the most important primitives in everything is just stable, something that is the same unit of account that people use off chain, which are basically dollars. And so Frax stablecoins on many different chains. These are Frax stablecoins that AMO contracts, which are stabilities, can mint and contract supply, but that doesn't necessarily mean there is enough collateral to match like the collateral ratio globally on Ethereum mainnet on every chain that Frax is deployed, right? Such as Moonbeam. We don't have $2 billion of collateral and stuff on Moonbeam, right? That stuff is on ETH mainnet through protocol and liquidity and Curve, Uniswap, other places, and things like that. And so we developed something where people can come to the protocol owned system contracts and actually deposit their Frax on any chain, and then get out Ethereum mainnet Frax in 24 hours. It basically is a round the clock we named it a ferry service, almost like a ship that travels between chains, and we named it a different kind of thing than a bridge, because we're explicitly trying to not actually use bridging service or have Frax have any kind of bridging risk. And so the cool thing is people will be able to once every day be able to bring natively minted Frax to Moonbeam or redeem it for Frax on ETH mainnet, or any other chain can do the same thing that this is deployed to. And from a technical perspective, it uses optic kind of fraud proofs and things like that between two different chains. So like Moonbeam's EVM environment, Ethereum, as well as kind of the other L2s. We're also looking at figuring out how to do it with ZK rollup stuff, ZK Sync, Starknet, and things like that. It'll obviously also be on EVM based chains. But the important thing is that it Frax protocols liability that you can actually directly redeem and mint from. And this is, I think, really, really different than using different bridges, right? Because different bridges, you have to additional them, right? Instead of, versus if you hold a stable coin, right? If you hold USDC, if you hold DAI, if you hold Frax, you're already trusting those entities, right, with their collateral requirements, their ability to redeem their liabilities and things like actually a much higher trust assumption than trusting a smart contract, right, or some kind of bridging provider. But that also goes the other way as well, right? That means that if the stablecoin provider has a native minting and redeeming system, different chains, you should use that rather than add additional wrapping risk to native liabilities of stablecoin issuers on any chain that they exist, right? So like for if USDC was natively issued on Moonbeam, everyone should use that USDC rather than bridged and wrapped USDC, even if you really, really love your favorite bridge, right? Same thing with Frax is once we have the Frax ferry, this minting and redeeming ferry on Moonbeam, you should not bridge Frax, right? You should just use a specific system. And this is kind of the philosophy that I'm speaking of, is because I think that for a lot of transfer between chains, it will be native stablecoin issuers. I sincerely think that, and from what I know, actually, and I can't really make public, but from other stablecoin projects and large stablecoin issuers, they are also working on ways to essentially give the best bridge kind of cross-chain service. And so I think those will significantly outcompete general message passing bridges. My personal kind of stablecoin centric view. So it'll be interesting to see.
You, Luke, are muted.
Somehow it muted me. You're absolutely right in the sense that if you're a DeFi power user, you have to kind of think about your risk at all the layers of the stack. And wrapping a token always introduces an additional amount of risk or additional layer of risk that you have to consider. And so it's pretty impressive that you're building this like native mint and redemption mechanism on chain, because for centralized stablecoin issuers like Circle and Tether, you could redeem off chain like through their bank partners, but having that capability on chain, I think, is really powerful, and it's another DeFi primitive that's pretty awesome. Wesso, what innovations are you seeing in cross chain? You guys are on mini chains.
Yeah, so there's a ton of user demand, and actually I think demographic specific demand based upon the different networks that you go on. So there's actually a lot of, I think, chain maxis, right? So like people who are specifically like Optimism maxis or Phantom maxis or Avalanche maxis. And so, each of the different chains we launch on, we have to develop like this new user base that's specific to that, blockchain. And I think that the whole ecosystem, the DeFi ecosystem, seems to be, it's going to be more multi-chain than it is just on, let's say, Ethereum mainnet. It's a little bit more expensive to be on mainnet, to do transactions. If you're a smaller user, which I think like 80% of our users are smaller users, it's like not efficient at all to use mainnet because it eats away basically all of your yield and most of your probably capital. And so I think now, we know now that this multi-chain DeFi universe is going to exist. So now, how do we eliminate the cumbersomeness of the bridging and being able to move positions, and how do we make it whereas the one ecosystem is basically all of DeFi. So if you're going to be an Avalanche user, or you're going to be a Moonbeam user, or you're going to be an Optimism user, or you're going to be a Phantom user, how do we efficiently move capital easily to each of those different networks, and be able to eliminate all of the transactions that go into creating a new position on a new network. And so I really like there's a lot of whole bridge aggregation services where essentially they're looking for the best bridging options, and most of the time swapping to stables and then being able to execute transactions on the other side. So instead of something taking 7 transactions that would frustrate you as a user, you can basically set exactly what you want to do and click at one transaction and be able to then go and enter a position on a different network. And so then we can start to see a more free flow of capital between the different networks. So I really think that that's the next level, is how do we make it easier for users? The thing that most excites me as a developer is that now we can actually send data along with token transfers. So one of the biggest issues, the innovation that was cool was being able to send data, right? So Curve was able to send data on V curve, so now you can get boosted rewards in Arbitrum, even though you're staked on Ethereum, and they're able to do that with the transfer between the chains. But I think what was missing was that there wasn't it wasn't asynchronous with token transfers. So when you send a token, you send the data might arrive first, and so you execute whatever action you want for the token arrives, and you really couldn't build a good product on that. And so now that's being solved, and so it allows you basically to do a whole bunch of really cool and unique products that I think we'll start to see come to fruition, and a few that we're working on. But it's really making it much easier for users to basically participate in any ecosystem they want, and hopefully can make more people want to participate in Moonbeam because it's easier. So if we can remove the barriers, I think that's really how we succeed.
That's awesome. I think in many ways, these new message passing protocols like Layer 0, Axelar, Wormhole, etc., really enable some of these cross-chain use cases, like you mentioned. For example, being able to deposit tokens from any chain and not having to worry about switching MetaMask to that chain and then or bridging or wrapping first, but taking care of that as a single atomic transaction where you pass the data and the tokens at the same time and then deposit them into some contract on the destination chain. I think that's pretty compelling because eventually we'll probably have a world where you don't have to really worry about which L1 you're on. You're able to sort of use applications in DeFi without having to, kind of think about oh, I'm on, oh, my mobile phone is on Verizon, so I can't use an application on AT&T, or whatever. That's not the case in the traditional internet. And so I think we're going to see that same thing happen in DeFi, where networks will sort of blend into the background. It's pretty awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit here. I wanted to ask the panel and get their opinions on, what are, what are the biggest barriers to entry for non-Web3 users to be comfortable interacting with DeFi? And how do you think we get past those barriers?
So I can start there. So the first one I would say is warranties. Apart from our ecosystem, if you ask anybody on the real world, they basically trust their bank because they trust their bank more than they trust themselves. Or we basically did the research and we found out that most of them, they put the money in their banks because they don't think that having it at home is as safe as the bank. So this means that they trust more their bank than what they trust themselves, right? So for me, the problem comes in DeFi is that we need to start seeing ways where we can, apart from obviously for the core itself, how smart contracts are built, but then really making sure that basically this undo button that we built in traditional on finance, it's that kind of undo buttons that makes a lot of people still not getting into the space. And the second part is it's that traditional finance it's leading the world. We are still very very tiny in the ecosystem, and the barriers is it's more on the utility on how I can use my tokens or how I can use it. For example, all the Frax that I just mint in Moonbeam, how can I use it for my daily life, right? How can I use it for then paying for my bills, for paying for my rent, for paying for all the different things, right? Because at the end, we're seeing that majority of people in the world at the end, they tend to live paycheck, like paycheck to paycheck, you know, so they are basically worried about all the different things that they need to pay. So I would think that there's those two main things. One is that say this undo button. Second part would be the um how we can break in a way that we can enable, you know, companies and services and things that people need to pay with DeFi.
That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, one of the things about protocol level DeFi is immutable, right? And it's irreversible, and that's actually a good quality to have at a protocol level because it reduces a lot of fraud and trust issues that we might have. But I do think there's room for another layer to be built on top of these DeFi protocols that can sort of service the retail consumer, where you do have that undo button, right? And that additional layer can, you know, sort of take care of like reversing a fraudulent transaction or things like that. But then fundamentally, they'll be interfacing with the DeFi protocols themselves, which are immutable. And I sort of see it evolving like that. And then the benefit to that will be that unlike the current traditional banking system, you'll be able to see on chain if your bank is solvent or not. The transparency will still be there, but you might have another layer built on top that's like, you know, the consumer friendly layer that can reverse fraudulent transactions if necessary and provide some types of insurance and other guarantees, things like that. So that's kind of interesting. Edson, what do you think?
Yeah, in my opinion, there are two main aspects that that can be improved and can help to increase the number of users. The first one, I think, is the products. I remember in DeFi two years ago, the user interfaces were, you know, there was no designers in the DeFi space, only developers building products. And I mean, I think the Curve UI is still, I think they just updated last 2 weeks ago, but it wasn't like very user friendly. So I think that's like a big barrier of entry. Obviously, it's getting better. I think lately, like apps like Uniswap or they are becoming pretty good. But yeah, that's a barrier. And the second, I think, is education. There is a lot of people really want to learn. They want to invest. Because, you know, I remember sometimes I was in the Uber and the Uber driver was asking me, "Hey, tell me, how do I do it? I want to learn." So I think that's also a main aspect. And actually now I think there is one more that I think it could help. I think you're right. Like there is a need for retail products that could remove this barrier of entry. Like, you know, very simple user interface. Like I think it can be something like perhaps in the middle of DeFi and centralized, but with more transparency. But I think the key here is to offer the right products, like similar to what traditional like Fidelity is offering to their users, but also perhaps to remove some, I would say, predatory practices, because some services really charge a lot of fees. And I think that also is kind of bad for users, because they are not investing a lot of money and then you are paying a lot of fees. So I think that's quite harmful for the industry.
Thanks.
I'm actually going to take the exact opposite contrarian view here, in the sense that I personally think that it's totally fine with whatever UI and things that are on chain. Eventually, enough people will come on board, just like they have usually. And to be honest, I think there should be more system about this stuff of like, if retail can use it, and there's, you know, the way to reverse transactions. That's one step of how we get FTX, right? Like the whole thing is that, oh, here's this great exchange, you know, we'll buy a bunch of stadium naming rights. Well, you know, you hold your thing here, use this to pay people. There's no way. I mean, like, let's be real. There's a reason why Frax only does stuff on chain. We don't do anything off chain. There's no way to actually provide transparency if you actually have the same kind of layer and say it's, you know, easier for grandma wants to use and things like that. And I feel like someone a lot of us that are like extremely, DeFi centric, crypto native and like extremely pro, crypto as like a separation of church and state, as Eric Voorhees. If you guys remember seeing that, basically that debate between him and SBF, I think it's so I'm actually going to take the opposite stance. I don't think it's good to have anything on top that's just going to recreate the exact idea, and having it in a Trojan horse package of it's going to be really easy to send this stuff to your mom's going to send this or that, and there's going to be fraud proofs or whatever, chargebacks and things like that. I think that'll continue to come full circle and people will continue to get wrecked like this FTX thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective as well. I know we're running up on time, but just really quick, do you think zero knowledge proofs could solve some of that? Or is it intractable and we should just be decentralization maxis?
I think that there should just be two worlds of these services, and the more confusing intermingling of them is a mistake. But I think only Eric, Voorhees or some others would probably agree with this. But that's basically my view. I resonate a lot with what he said on the Bankless podcast the other week with the about ration. Highly recommended, by the way, if anyone wants to see that.
Awesome. Wesso, any comments?
Yeah, I agree. I don't like the extra layer, but I do think and I also think that we can't aim for everybody, right? Your grandma's not going to use crypto. They don't use Fidelity, right? They have somebody that manages that stuff for them. So I don't know if that's really what we're really aiming for, but it is a huge learning curve to be in this space. So if you want to go and interact with Moonwell, if you want to even give money over to Moonbeam, you have to learn how to do that, and then you have to learn how to interact with your wallet. And so I think that there is an opportunity for our UIs to improve, right? For us to be a little bit more educational on the UIs, to take some of the terminology down a notch, because I think we all talk at a very high level because we live it, but I think we can sort of learn from test cases of okay, for people who want to get or they're interested in the space but maybe not understand everything, how do we take the terminology down a little bit and maybe make it a little bit more easy for people to understand? So I think that that's probably the next level. That, and obviously removing the thousands of transactions you have to do anything, right? So if we can package things up better, batch it into one transaction, making on-ramping easier, right? Where it's not getting 40% acceptance rates for people who want to actually on-ramp into crypto. And so we have a lot of, I think, barriers we can kind of take down in order to get more people into the Web3 space.
Awesome. Okay, well, with that, I believe we're a couple minutes over time. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. If anyone would love to just say a final word or two, please feel free. Just want to thank everyone for being here. Wanted to mention Moonbeam Ignite is happening right now. So there are really good liquidity incentives on StalaSwap and Moonwell as well. So, hope to see people participate in DeFi and Moonbeam. But everyone want to do quick goodbyes?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I learned a lot also. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you in the Frax ecosystem and the greater Moonbeam ecosystem.
Yeah, it's been fun. Go use the DeFi product. Try it out.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.